Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Maidan Free Zone, I'm delighted to welcome each and every one of you to our compliance webinar, a forum dedicated to exploring the intricate landscape of regulatory adherence and ethical business practices. To guide us through this insightful journey, we have the privilege of hosting distinguished speakers who bring a wealth of experience and expertise to the table. Our first speaker, Ms. Safiya Hashim Al-Safi, Director of the Anti-Money Laundering Department at the Ministry of Economy, brings a wealth of knowledge, providing a unique and insightful perspective on compliance in our industry. Our second speaker, Mr. Hassan Al-Hassani, Senior Data Analyst, National Coordination and Follow-up Department at the Executive Office. He will enlighten us on the evolving compliance landscape, offering valuable insight into best practices. And our third speaker, Mr. Dinesh Pereira, Senior Compliance Officer at Maidan Free Zone, will share his expertise on Maidan's internal compliance processes. We'll then have a Q&A session that will be skillfully guided and moderated by Nada and Charles, part of Maidan Free Zone. Their expertise and dedication will ensure an engaging and smoothly conducted session. Welcome to our esteemed speakers. Without further ado, our first presenter, Ms. Safiya Hashim Al-Safi, to begin the knowledge session. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Asia, and good morning, everyone, to this session. So here I'm gonna talk about the mandate of Ministry of Economy in anti-money laundering and terrorist financing framework in UAE. So first of all, the Ministry of Economy is appointed as a supervisory authority for designated non-financial businesses and professions, which called DNFPPs. Please, next slide. Yes. So next, please. As per the regulations in UAE, here you will find in this slides all the regulations and laws regarding the anti-money laundering and terrorist finance in UAE. So first of all, we have the federal law. We have Federal Law number 20 of 2018 and its amendment, the Federal Law number 26 of 2021. And there is executive regulation also, Cabinet Decision number 10 of 2019 and its amendments. And in this regulation, you will find all the obligation for the NFPPs. There is also Cabinet Decision number 16 of 2021, which include all the violation and administrative penalties for non-compliance companies. We have also Cabinet Decision number 74 of 2020, and it is related to targeted finance sanction of UAE. We have also UBA regulation, which is Cabinet Decision number 58 of 2020 and Cabinet Decision number 53 of 2021. In addition, there is guidance issued by Ministry of Economy and several circulars as policies to all designated non-financial businesses and professions. Next, please. For Ministry of Economy, we have a dedicated department to have all the mandates of supervision. We are implementing risk-based approach where we have three main sections: policies and risk section and supervision section, in addition of enforcement and investigation section. In the policies and risk, this is the department or the section which is responsible to evaluate and assess the risk of the entities and the business in general. They are responsible to issue the guidance, doing the workshops, and also updating the website of the department. Supervision team is responsible for the on-site and off-site inspection. We have also the enforcement. From the name of enforcement, they are responsible to have or issue the penalties and receiving the grievance of non-compliance companies. Next, please. For designated non-financial businesses of professions, what does that mean? For anti-money laundering system in general, the well-known thing is it's related to financial institutions or financial systems, where all these compliance obligation is on financial institutions such as banks, exchange houses, insurance companies, and so on. Recently or lately, FATF issued the new updated recommendations where they added designated non-financial businesses and professions, and they are part of the methodology of the assessments, and also there is obligations on those companies. They considered as high risk, and also the obligations are similar to financial institutions somehow. But in UAE, we have 5 main designated non-financials or 5 sectors. First of them is dealers in precious metal and precious stones. We have corporate service providers, real estate brokers and agents, and independent accountants and auditors. This is under supervision of Ministry of Economy. In addition of lawyers and notary publics, they are also under supervision of Ministry of Justice. We have also other supervisory authorities in UAE for DNFPPs, and they are responsible for DNFPPs issued or licensed by them, where are their financial free zones. We have ADGM and DIFC. Next, please. The obligations, or what we are looking for during the inspections or the checking the framework of AML within those or these companies, 13 topics. They have to have AML, anti-money laundering policies and procedures. They have to have their risk assessment. We are checking their governance system. Compliance officers should be appointed. We are looking after their customer due diligence measures, if they are identifying the politically exposed persons, what is the cash transactions control, the continuous monitoring of their transaction, also the suspicious transaction reports, if they are raising the reports to the FIU or Financial Intelligence Unit. We are looking or for their record keeping, in addition of the training awareness for their staff and implementation of targeted financial sanctions, in addition of if they have independent audit for their framework. Next, please. So this is the first role or mandate for Ministry of Economy as a supervisory authority for DNFPPs. We have another role for Ministry of Economy as a regulator of ultimate beneficial ownership framework. So Ministry of Economy is chairing a subcommittee under the National Committee of Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorist Finance. This committee have more than 8 main subcommittees. One of them is registrars in UAE, or registrars or company registration authorities in UAE, including mainlands, commercial free zone, and financial free zones. So we have 40 registrars across UAE now. There is some already merged, and there is some new commercial free zones announced recently. So we have 8 mainland in UAE, and we have 30 commercial free zones, in addition of 2 financial free zones. Ministry of Economy is chairing this subcommittee, and we are having regular meetings, in addition of unified the AML framework, in addition of the minimum requirements of any licensing issuing. Next. Also, the Ministry of Economy is having the National Economy Registrar, which is a system having all companies registered within UAE. And it is publicly available. You can find all basic information of the companies available within the website of the Ministry of Economy. And also there is the UBO information, but the beneficial ownership information is not public. It's only for law enforcement authorities. Next, please. So here we will talk about the role of company service providers as DNFPPs, and also they have some obligation for beneficial ownership system. For company or corporate service providers, I mean by this the companies who providing establishing services to another companies or representing other companies in front of government or in front of the registration authority. They are considered as designated non-financial businesses and professions, so they have obligation to implement for a system of anti-money laundering, and also they are supervised by Ministry of Economy. The main obligations are the 13 topics I presented previously. In addition of concentrating on customer due diligence, they have to understand that there is an obligation of knowing their customers. They have certain types, either to simplified or standard or enhanced. Enhanced, this should be for high net worth clients or high risk companies or suppliers. In addition, next please. They have to also raise suspicious activity report or suspicious transaction report to the Financial Intelligence Unit. And this is through a system, the GoAML system. So depending on their CDD measures, if they have any suspicious transaction or activity from their clients, they have to raise the SARS and STR, and there is more details in the guidance and also in the cabinet decision number 10. And they have to understand, sorry, the typologies and red flags to raise STRs. Next, please. There is also obligation, as I mentioned, there is anti-money laundering and terrorist finance obligation. Here we have targeted financial sanction, TFS, and this is implementation of cabinet decision number 74 of 2020. And this is related to terrorist list and the terrorist list of UN or issued by UN or the local terrorist list. Here, they have also, there's a guiding, specified guidance and specified website for this obligation. And it's monitored by Executive Office of Control and Non-Proliferation in UAE. So companies should register in both system, GoAML system, to raise the matching and the action taken by the company, in addition of subscription of notification system, where they can receive any update immediately if there is any new name added to the list, the UN list or the local terrorist list. Then they have to do also continuous screening and checking of on their clients. They have to freeze the fund if they find a match or 100% match. There is also other implementation if they have partially matches. So this obligation is also on company service providers. Next, please. This is also another obligation under beneficial ownership framework, where because the corporate service providers are establishing other companies, so they are responsible to understand the UBO requirements and also submit those information to the registration authority. So they have to verify the accuracy of this information. They have to track the chain of the structure of the companies. They have to understand the percentage of the shares and perform the AML KYC in addition to submitting all these information to the registration authority. Next. Here we have some example of the structures for the companies. We have simple structure and we have also multiple layers. Next, please. We have a complex ownership structure and also joint ownership structure within the same layer. So this is example will help you to figure out the beneficial owner. All these information should be understood by company service providers in addition of the anti-money laundering obligation under Ministry of Economy, and submit all this information for their companies to the registration and make sure that it is accurate and up to date. Next, please. This is the end of the presentation. If you have any further questions, we are happy to answer. So, I received some questions here.
Thank you, Ms. Tia. We will get to the Q&A once the sharing sessions is completed.
Sure.
Let's request our second presenter, Mr. Hassan Al-Hassani.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So this is Hassan Al-Hassani. I'll be presenting on behalf of my colleague Mariam. So this presentation is about the UAE National Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism. Okay. All right. So I'll start about the executive office. So let's start with the background and the history of the office. So first of all, it was established in 2021 by cabinet decree. It's mandated with implementing the national strategy on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing for 2020 till 2023 and the national action plan. The Executive Office is a primary national coordinating body on AML-CFT efforts within the UAE and aims to enable and better equip the UAE in building a strong and sustainable AML-CFT structure. So to achieve its objectives, the Executive Office holds a wide-ranging mandate to assist AML-CFT related entities in enhancing their efficiency and to better address the national action plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Executive Office is the national champion when it comes to AML-CFT. We deal with various direct and indirect stakeholders involved in the AML-CFT agenda. There are more than 80 entities. We're responsible for coordinating and driving the AML-CFT agenda. We have three core functions: national risks and policies, national coordination and follow-up, and communications and strategic partnerships. Next slide. Okay, so let's start with, so what's the Financial Action Task Force? Like why are we focusing on AML-CFT? So it's all because of the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. So they were established in 1989 in Paris by the G7 countries. It's a global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog. Why is it called the watchdog? Because it can harm countries, basically. It can put a red flag on a country. So when anyone is dealing with the UAE, they will have to go through like enhanced due diligence. They need to check because we're considered high risk. So it affects our economy. So the FATF, they set international standards that aim to prevent money laundering and terrorist financing activities. So the FATF monitors countries to ensure that they implement the FATF standards fully and effectively, and they hold countries accountable, basically the countries who do not comply. The way they hold them accountable is basically they publicly they release statements, they put them in the gray list, they even have a black list. So they have multiple layers of dealing with countries who do not comply. So they play a central role in combating money laundering and terrorist financing activities through setting global standards, assisting jurisdictions, and evaluating countries' ability to prevent and detect and investigate and prosecute money laundering activities. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's the objective of the FATF? So they set and promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures for combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and threats to the integrity of the international financial system. So they monitor countries' progress in implementing the FATF recommendations. They promote so they promote the adoption and implementation of FATF recommendations globally. They review money laundering and terrorist financing techniques and countermeasures. Next slide. Okay, so the FATF, they have 40 recommendations that deal with technical compliance, and then they have also immediate outcomes. So first I'll talk about the 40 recommendations. So in 1996, the recommendations were revised for the first time to reflect the evolving money laundering typologies. Just keep in mind, crimes, they keep evolving. So FATF, they need to constantly update their recommendations based on the current situation. In 1996, 40 recommendations have been endorsed by more than 130 countries, and it's the international anti-money laundering standard. So the FATF recommendations are they set out a comprehensive and consistent framework that measures which countries should implement and measures. Basically, these countries should implement these recommendations to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, as well as financing of proliferation and weapons of mass destruction. So just keep in mind that countries have a diverse legal, administrative, operational framework. Every country is different. So you cannot do the same. Like if country A did something, you cannot do this. It could work for you if you do something similar. You might get the same outcome, but each country is different. So it's not a one size fits all. You need to implement the recommendations, but then to assess the effectiveness is different for each country. Next slide, please. So moving on to the immediate outcomes. So once you implement the recommendations, you assess the effectiveness, like how effective. It's not just like I give you the tools and then that's it, you're compliant. No, you need to see how the tools are working. So the FATF has 11 immediate outcomes, and they represent the key goals of which the AML CFT system should achieve. So we have immediate outcomes, we call them IOs. So you have IO1 up to IO11, as you can see in the slide. They start with risks and policies, international cooperation, supervision, preventative measures, legal person arrangements, financial intelligence, money laundering investigations and prosecutions, confiscations, terrorist financing investigations and prosecutions, terrorism financing preventive measures and financial sanctions, and then you have proliferation financial sanctions. Next slide, please. Okay, so the UAE's progress with the FATF assessment, process. So we started with the mutual evaluation report. Then after the mutual evaluation report, we moved to the post-observation progress report because the UAE had several deficiencies. After the post-observation report, or the POPR report, we moved to the jurisdictions under increased monitoring, which is the gray list. And now we're in the progress report stage, where we submit 4 quarterly progress reports for the ICRG to review. And then hopefully in January we'll move to the final stage of the progress report, and then the public statement, which states that the UAE has done a good job in the AML-CFT system. So either they can be removed or they remain. It depends on the public statement. Next slide, please. Okay, so the status efforts of the UAE and the ICRG process. Next slide. Okay, so the progress made by the UAE. So first, the UAE was referred to the ICRG follow-up process based on the results of the mutual evaluation report. Then we moved to the post-observation period report, the POPR, and it was prepared by experts of the joint group and submitted to the UAE for review according to the ICRG procedures. So the experts prepare a report and then they give it to the UAE for the review. So initially there were 51 action items, and they covered all the immediate outcomes of the FATF methodology. So the authorities have provided supporting documents on those on basically the action items, and there were in IO1, IO8, and IO9, it was rated as substantial. There was substantial level of effectiveness. So the joint group reviewed their initial report and reduced the number of action items from 51 to 15. Then the revised POPR was submitted to the ICRG, and it was discussed in the 2021 FATF plenary for adoption. And the action plan was approved by the UAE and adopted by the FATF plenary with a designated timeline. Next slide, please. So the national technical teams under the higher committee directions and the executive office coordination and follow-up department, we continued to respond to all ICRG inquiries. And there were 4 meetings held in Zambia, Morocco, Mauritius, and Jordan to discuss the progress of the UAE. So the joint group analysis and in the last phase, so during the joint group analysis and also in the last face-to-face meeting, all 15 items have been largely addressed, and the UAE was able to demonstrate effectiveness in their AML-CFT system. Next slide. Okay, so the progress made by the UAE in terms of beneficial ownership information. So the UAE published a detailed AML-CFT guidance for the registrars on implementing the AML-CFT framework. Since April 2022, the UAE has conducted regular outreach sessions and increased level of AML-CFT compliance across the 38 registrars. The UAE established an assessment methodology to determine the level of compliance of the registrars. And most registrars have shown increased levels of compliance with the AML-CFT framework, and they established an effective risk assessment framework. Then also you have the UAE registrars, they continue to increase their effectiveness. They also have dissuasive and proportionate sanctions. From Q1 to Q2 2023, the registrars imposed 1,675 disciplinary actions for failure to maintain adequate, accurate, and updated beneficial ownership information, and also failure to comply with recording of beneficial ownership information. Then they demonstrate that all company registrars have witnessed an increase in the effectiveness and dissuasive sanctions for companies violating the Cabinet's resolution number 53 of 2021. So the UAE primarily detects such breaches through license renewals, on-site inspections, and proactive screening of adverse news and trigger events. Next slide. Okay, so what's the next step? Let's move. So so during the FATF plenary in October 2023, the FATF made the initial determination that the UAE has substantially completed the action plan and warrants an on-site assessment to verify the implementation of the AML-CFT reforms that has begun and is being sustained. So basically, they want to make sure that the UAE, okay, they did the job, and they're also working on keep maintaining their efforts, not just, okay, we'll exit the gray list and then we stop. They also want to see future commitment. Then you have the UAE will prepare a report summarizing the country's effort, and this report will be submitted in November. Then we have the on-site visit for the public and private sector, which is happening on January 2024. So the joint group will prepare a detailed report to be submitted to the ICRG and the plenary for next February. The FATF plenary will discuss basically the report and adoption. And we hope that during that FATF plenary, the UAE will be moved out of the gray list. So once the report is up, if you can go back to one slide. Oh yes, yeah, which is what I mentioned. After this FATF plenary, the UAE, we hope that we're no longer in the gray list. Next slide, please. So ongoing efforts. Next slide. Okay, so we're working on sustainability, and so we're always focusing on sustainable AML-CTF system. So the executive office will continue ensuring that the AML-CTF system is sustained. We developed a roadmap to prepare the country for the next mutual evaluation report, the 5th round, which is happening in the period of 2025 till 2027. And we prioritized multiple critical projects to be addressed in the upcoming years, such as the virtual assets and the VASPs, which is the virtual asset service providers, supervision, combating proliferation, financing, and governing the nonprofit organization framework. And that's all I have, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our third speaker, Mr. Dinesh Pereira, our Senior Compliance Officer.
Yeah, hello, good morning, everyone. So my name is Dinesh. I'm the Senior Compliance Officer at Meydan Free Zone. So thank you for attending today's webinar, and I would like to thank the Executive Office and the Ministry of Economy for their collaboration. So today I will walk you through the compliance form, right? The process, which includes the compliance form and various sections you would need to complete. So this will be a a step-by-step guide to the compliance form. So we will also look at PEP declaration form, which is applicable for politically exposed persons. And then we will discuss the significance of this form. So by the end of this webinar, we'll have a good understanding regarding the compliance process in Meydan, and you'll be better equipped as business owners and a channel partner to take prompt action, on compliance requirements, right? So now we'll look at what the compliance form is all about and discuss the importance of this form. Right. So prior to onboarding clients, Meydan will request clients to complete the compliance form. So for example, if you're a business owner and you're incorporating a new company in the free zone, so you would receive the compliance form. And one thing that you need to remember is that the compliance form can be triggered independently to all stakeholders, which includes all the shareholders, ultimate beneficial owners, and managers. And they would receive this compliance form on their registered email. So what you have to do is basically click on the link, right, that you have received, and then start populating the compliance form, right? So I also want to highlight that Meydan is currently in the process of enhancing this process by integrating this compliance form into the ERP system, so that you can complete the compliance questionnaire on the portal itself, right? Which would enhance your user experience, and this is to be, this is due to be implemented, right? And also, the purpose of this compliance form is to gather more information of our clients, so we can perform enhanced due diligence and conform with the regulatory requirements set forth by the Ministry of Economy, right? Okay, so next slide. Right. So this is what the compliance form would look like. Right. So what you have to do is in this section, you would have to complete your professional experience that you have. So if you can see that button there that says add new. So if you click on this button, you would be able to populate information about your professional experience. So under professional experience, you could, include your, past experience that you have, if you're an employee in an organization, or this could be if you're a business owner. And professional experience can also include if you have had a family business, right? So all you have to do is just fill in your company name and the role. So for example, if you're a business owner or an employee, and select the nature of business, so which industry it is in, and the start and end date. So it's quite forward, pretty straightforward, right? So and you have the option to add multiple professional experiences here in this section, right? Okay, so moving on to the next slide, right? This is a very important section, right? And here you will have questions regarding the business itself, right? So what you have to do here is to, write a brief summary of your business, about the objectives and what products and services that the business would intend to offer. So for example, in a sense, you would basically have to write a summary of your business model, right? So if you're into general trading, then, you could include things like, okay, we're going to engage in, things like trading in furniture, electronics, clothes, toys, or whatever product that you plan to engage in, and you can elaborate your business model here, right? And as a business owner, I believe you're in a better position to answer these questions. So, and you shouldn't simply copy and paste the activities, that you have selected, right? So, this section is also very important because, so for example, let's say you have picked general trading as your licensed activity, right? So you might think, okay, you'll be able to trade in multiple products across different industries. But there are certain, limitations. So for example, you will not be able to import precious stones and metals using a general trading license, right? Because this is a completely different, and they fall under DNFBB regulations, and you will not be able to use a general trading license to carry out, importing precious stones and metals, right? So we look into these details, and we can, we advise clients that we offer, different activities that are more aligned to their business model, right? And so it's very important that the first two questions are answered more, by providing a brief explanation about the business model, right? So the next few questions are about the payment type that you'll be using with regards to how you'll be purchasing your products, and where applicable, and how you'll be receiving payments from your potential clients, right? And you also have the last few questions you have about your key competitors. So if you are aware of your key competitors, you can annotate this. And also, if you have any interest in business dealings in countries that are deemed high risk, you can actually select yes or no and review the list of high risk countries and activities there, right? Okay, so moving on. Okay, so this section of the compliance form is regarding the client source of wealth, right? And the purpose of requesting source of wealth documents is to identify where the funds are derived from, right? So this could include income from employment, investment returns, business profits, sale of movable or immovable properties. So there are so many options here. I think about 8 options where you can pick for your source of wealth declaration. And so if you tick one of these options, we have included what is required. So this section will expand to give you more information about what documents you can submit, and what will be acceptable as source of wealth, right? And what documents are required. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So if you select income from business. So what you need to do is provide, you need to provide a trade license so we can confirm the ownership, right? And alongside this, you will also be required to, provide some sort of financial record, whether it be statements, audited financial statements. So if you are a business owner, you can provide your, trade license documents, or sometimes even a tax document like the IRS document in India, for example. So that shows your ownership. And also, alongside this, you will need to provide your audited financial statements, or in case you don't have this, you can provide your corporate bank statements, the latest ones, right? The last 6 months bank statements would suffice. Yeah. Okay, right. So moving on to the next section. So we have to the next slide. Yeah. So here we have savings from income. So if your source of wealth is savings from employment income, then you can include salary, pension, bonus, end of service benefits, right? And also, to evidence this, we would require your last 3 months pay slips, for example, or a letter from your employer saying that you've been receiving income, like a salary certificate to annotate if you've received any bonuses. And so in the absence of these, we can also accept the last 3 months bank statements showing that you've received salary, right? So a common issue that we come across in a bank statement is that we receive bank statements where there are no transactions. So, and we are unable to determine where the funds have been derived from, right, with regards to the balance. So it's important that you provide supporting documents to confirm your source of wealth, right? Okay, so this is regarding employment income. So let's move on to the other options on the next slide. So we also have more options like sale of property. So if your source of wealth is from sale of property, you can actually show us supporting documents to evidence the sale of property, like even bank statements showing where the funds have been credited. You can include new and old title deeds that you have, or a sales contract that you have as a supporting document to show that you've made a sale of property, right? And you have made an amount out of this, right? And also we have a loan, so as source of wealth requirement. So here, if your source of wealth is from a loan, then you can actually provide a loan agreement, right? Or you could show bank statements that shows that you've received a loan, and things like that, right? So these are certain documents that you can provide, and this is clearly mentioned in the compliance form as well. So if you pick on loan, you would see all these options are available to you to provide. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next section, right? This section is for a gift. So for example, if your source of wealth is a gift, so if someone has provided you a gift, for example, a monetary gift. In this case, we would require a gift declaration from the donor, confirming, or acknowledging the source of the donated funds, right? So we would also require the donor's passport copy, and also we may request, supporting documents regarding source of wealth from the third party as well, right? So these are these things. So, and also if, we also have another section called the others, and this has been included. So in case your source of wealth does not fit the previously discussed options, you could include this option. And, for example, if you've sold a luxury car or a boat or even a motor vehicle, you can, you have this option where you can provide us with supporting documentation here, right? Such as bank statements showing your transaction, and, documents showing, your sale of a vehicle or whatever asset that you've sold. So this is an option which you can also include, right? So which you have. Okay, so let's move on to the next section, the next slide, which shows you information regarding the proof of address. So this is a very important section, right? And all clients are required to, provide documents depicting their primary residential address, right? So there are certain options here as well. So on the compliance form itself, you have options such as providing title deeds, utility bills, your bank account statements and things like that. There are various options which you can select to provide as a proof of address, right? But you also have an option to download a proof of address confirmation form in case you do not have a proof of address. So we'll discuss this in the coming slides, right? Okay, so this is the section that you can see in the compliance form where you can attach your proof of address confirmation, right? So let me tell you what we can accept, what documents we can accept as a proof of address in the next slide, right? Okay, so yeah, so we can actually accept tenancy agreements, tenancy contracts with your name on it. We can accept driver's licenses with your address on it. Local authority tax bills, tax certificates, utility bills, passports which has the address printed on it. So certain passports like the Indian passport, you have the address printed on it. So this is valid proof of address. Then you have national ID, which is also acceptable as a proof of address if the address is there. And next, so if you have a bank statement with your complete address on it, this is also acceptable as a proof of address, right? And also in case, you are residing in, let's say, a residence that has been given to you by your employer. So you can actually get a letter from your employer confirming that you are actually residing in this address, right? Okay, so these are some of the documents that we accept as proof of address, right? Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So your proof of address must show your name, right, and the address, matching the information on the application, right? So, your proof of address must always be a residential address, and it should not be a commercial address, right? And also the date of issue must be must be dated within the last 6 months or the validity of the term. So for example, if you have an Ijari for 1 year, then if it's within the term, then we can accept this as a proof of address, right? And it should also show, have a clear logo, clear name of the sender, like your bank, your local authority, if it's a utility service provider. And yeah, so this is for your proof of address and what it should show, right? So what we cannot accept as proof of address is, for example, the UAE driver's license, because it does not show the address, right? And certain utility bills where you have just the PO box and not your complete address. And sometimes even, we receive letters from banks confirming your proof of address. So this is also not acceptable. And we also do not accept screenshots, photos in JPEG formats, right? Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So this is an example of utility bill, right, that you can see. And on the right-hand side, you can see the information on the application. So what you have is a utility bill, and in this utility bill, you will have your name on it and the address printed on it, right? So this is being masked. Certain information here because there's an actual proof of address. And so now if you are providing a proof of address, the address in the utility bill should also match the application address. So in your application, if you say your country of residence is UAE, you must provide a UAE proof of address, right? So if you want to change your address, that also can be done. So this also need to be emailed to us saying that you would wish to change your address, right? So yeah, and then, okay, we'll move on to the next section. So for example, what if, you're living with someone else and you don't have a proof of address? So this is a common issue that we face. And, so what, you don't necessarily have to have your own proof of address. So what you can do is, this is an option that is available to you. So you can complete this no objection certificate form, right? So on the left-hand side, you can see the no objection certificate form. So in case, for example, let's take a customer named John Doe. So John Doe has incorporated Medan Real Estate LLC, for example, right? And now John Doe is actually residing with Clint DeCruz. So now Clint DeCruz can provide this NOC saying that John Doe is living with Clint, right? So now Clint is providing a declaration here. So Clint is a third party in this case, right? So Clint now has to provide us his passport copy, right? And also his proof of address. So for example, if he has an Ijari or a utility bill that confirms his proof of address, then we can accept this, right? So this is an NOC form that we have, and this can be downloaded from the compliance form itself, right? So if you do not have a permanent address, or if you are residing with someone else, you can simply download this NOC form and get a third party to complete this, right? So this is very straightforward, this proof of address confirmation form, right? Okay, good. So let's move on to the next slide, right? So that's it about the proof of address, right? So the next one is regarding politically exposed persons. So what are the requirements for politically exposed persons? So Medan would, send out what is known as a PEP declaration form, which I will show you in the next slides. But I'll show you how you can complete this form. But just for you to get an understanding of who a PEP is, right? I have this slide prepared for you. So a politically exposed person is an individual who has, become an assignee with a prominent public function in the UAE or foreign country, or within an international organization. So for example, a former or present head of states, a former and present senior government officials, judicial or military officials, senior executives, managers of state-owned corporations, senior officials of political parties, and former and present, senior executives and board members of government-owned organizations. So all of these are considered to be politically exposed people. And even we have the definition of a PEP would also extend to, direct family members. For example, their spouses, children, and also associates of PEPs are also present, right? So, so due to their potential ability to influence, government policies, determine the outcome of public funding or procurement decisions, or obtain access to public funds, politically exposed persons are classified as, high-risk individuals from an AML CTF perspective, right? So what would happen is, so if you are a politically exposed person, for example, if you move on to the next slide, Medan would request you to provide this declaration saying that you are in fact a politically exposed person, right? So this form is quite simple to populate. So if you are a politically exposed person, what you would say is you can tick yes, right? and then populate the information in this section. So on the box provided. So as you can see on the form, so you can just mention your role, the name of the company. So if you're an active or an inactive PEP, and the position that you held and why you deem yourself as a politically exposed person. And in case you are related to a politically exposed person, or your family member, or you're an associate of a PEP, so you can fill out the details such as the full name, position, job description, relationship, and so on, right? And also if the PEP or the politically exposed person has any other businesses that fall under their ownership, the next section is applicable to them, business interest declaration section, right? And it's pretty straightforward. You can fill this form straight away, right? So that's all from me. So thank you so much for taking the time to join this webinar. So we can move on to the Q&A session now.
Thank you, Dinesh. So we've covered some insightful information today. Now it's time to address your questions. I encourage you to actively participate in the Q&A session by typing your queries using the designated Q&A feature. And let's make this session interactive and valuable for everyone. Nada and Charles, please.
Thank you for... Thank you, Asya. Okay, let's start with the questions that we have been getting throughout the presentation. Let's go for the first question. How can a corporate service provider identify whether the customer is related to a terrorist funding? Safia, would you like to answer this question for us?
Yes, sure. So there is several ways, either to have a screening system or a screening tool. This is available, and they can have a vendor to have the solution. Otherwise, they can also do it manually. Depends on number of clients they have. They can check across the UN page or the EOSN or Executive Office of Control and Non-Proliferation website, where they can also view the local terrorist list. So this is how they can identify.
Okay, perfect. This question is for Charles. If I choose a holding company as an activity under my license, do I need to register in compliance system?
Thank you, Nada. Great question. So if you want to be engaging in holding company activities, it may not necessarily need to go through the compliance system. However, with Meydan, you'll need to update us with regards to the change in your activity. So that would be reaching out to Meydan Free Zone with regards to initiating an amendment. And then I would recommend specifically for holding company in just being up to date on economic substance regulations. This is with regards to a change in the UAE laws and regulations. So certain activities means businesses need to be aware and take certain steps, and holding company falls under one of them. So initiate an amendment, update the activities on your license, and then just look up the economic substance regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Another question probably for Dinesh. When do we receive the compliance form?
So, yeah, the compliance form will be triggered, like I said earlier, for all shareholders, all stakeholders in the company. So shareholders would receive this, managers would receive this, and the ultimate beneficial owners would receive this. So this could be, during the time of a setup. So when you try to incorporate your business here in Meydan Free Zone, or during the time of a renewal. So these are the most likely times that you would receive the compliance form.
Thank you, Dinesh. Okay, so the next question I would say for Charles again. Does every shareholder need to complete the compliance form?
Thank you, Nada. So yes, if the business has received the compliance form, then all stakeholders on the license, so all the shareholders, the manager, directors, the ultimate beneficial owner, if they are different individuals, then yes, each individual will receive the compliance form to be completed. Thank you.
Okay, another question. Does all shareholders need to provide proof of address? And do we need to complete the proof of address NOC form?
I can take that one. So yes, all stakeholders again, so shareholders, manager, director, UBO, if ultimate beneficial owner, if different individuals, then yes, proof of address will need to be provided for all. And as Dinesh mentioned during his presentation, the proof of address NOC form will only be applicable to individuals who, for example, are residing with someone else, with a spouse, for example. They may not have proof of address, like a DWA bill in their own name. So the proof of address NOC form will only be signed by the third party to verify that the individual who is our client is actually residing with that third party. So that will be the only instance in which the proof of address NOC form needs to be completed. And yes, to answer the first part, all stakeholders will need to provide proof of address. Thank you.
If you allow me, Charles and Nada, I just want to explain something here. There is a compliance requirements as a company registered with Meydan. So Meydan have some obligations as a registrars. So they are taking your information, they are verifying for all registered company, regardless with their activities. In Ministry of Economy compliance regime, we are supervising only DNFBP sectors, who are only 4 sectors: dealers in precious metal and precious stones, real estate agents, and company service providers, and auditors and accountants. So those sectors have different or more obligations under AML-CFT, and we are doing inspections as Ministry of Economy. So the requirements of Meydan, this is the requirements as their obligations in registration and licensing. So this is, I just want to highlight the differences. Thank you.
Thank you, Safia. I have another question for you, Safia, if you don't mind. Who can identify, or how do we identify that the customer is a PEP or the politically exposed person?
Yes, here we have 2 ways: either to ask the customer directly if he is exposed, political exposed person, or also through the tool or the screening tool system if they have. So this is the 2 ways he can identify, or can have the open source in the websites or searching by webs.
Okay, thank you. A question to Mr. Hassan. What does the FATF expect from a corporate service provider?
Okay, so I answered that question in the chat, but I'll just read it out loud. So basically, the Financial Action Task Force, they expect company service providers to adhere to key principles such as know your customer, enhanced due diligence of high risk when dealing with high risk clients, monitoring transactions, they report suspicious activities, risk assessment, compliance. Most importantly, you need compliance and training. And then to also there was a second half to the question as well. It says, how do I identify a PEP, which Safiya answered. I also wrote asking them directly. You check official databases, you do background research, you screen against social media sources, and you just always ongoing monitoring on the clients.
Yeah. Further to what Hassan's identified, now FATF is having the methodologies, and they have issued the guidance for the NFPPs as recommendations. In UAE, we took this recommendation and reflected in our regulations and laws. So all the obligations are already mentioned in our laws, where I already presented. But and also as a company service providers, obligations focused on the knowing your customer or CDD measures, and then raising the SDRs or the suspicious transaction report, and implementing the targeted sanctions or financial sanction TFS. All these information mentioned in the presentation I present. So yes, thank you, Hassan, for your answer, and just only to add more details. Thank you.
Thank you.
But also one thing, the FATF methodology, this is also available online. So it's not like confidential information. If someone wants to read about the FATF, just Google FATF methodology. You'll find it on FATF's website. You can just look at whatever section you're interested in, and all information is available like publicly on the FATF website as well, if you guys want to read and just get educated on that.
Very clear. Safiya, another question for you. Clients are asking we're asking them about the countries they are dealing with or they are buying and selling from. So they are asking, are they not allowed to deal with countries that are high risk?
Yes, this is again depends on the risk appetite. There is regular updates on the countries or high-risk countries, and there is circulars issued by Ministry of Economy occasionally regarding the high-risk jurisdictions. So it depends on the company appetite and their risk exposure to reputation, their also operation to expose to those countries. It's not like the ministry is having a list or forbidding. But for example, if there is blacklisted countries, yes, this is forbidden to deal with. But for other high-risk companies, it depends on their risk appetite. They can either visit the National Committee website to check on those high-risk countries, or they can check it also from FATF website list.
Here, thank you, Safiya. Another question to Dinesh. If we completed the compliance form at the setup stage, do we need to complete the compliance form again at the time of renewal?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. So this is because there could be changes. So for example, if you take the proof of address alone, there could be changes to the proof of address. Client information may have changed. So we would request, the clients to redo the compliance form, and this will be triggered at the time of renewal.
Thank you, Danish. Okay. There was another question. So for Charles, if the clients they submitted the source of wealth as income from business, however, this business did not generate any money yet, what would be the acceptable document?
Thank you, Nada. So yeah, I mean, income from business, generally speaking, we would need ownership documents, one to verify that the individual does actually own the business or is involved heavily within the business. Alongside that, we would need some sort of financial records, again, to verify the source of wealth, source of funds. Now, if in an example where the business hasn't conducted any business, there's been no transactions, then we would look at the source of wealth or source of fund or both from before the business was set up. So where the funds derived from in order to establish a business itself in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Dinesh, if the client is living in a serviced apartment, what kind of document do we accept from them as proof of address?
Okay, so if the client is living in a serviced apartment, then of course the client can provide, a contract that they have in the client's name. So I think this should be acceptable as a proof of address.
Okay, and another question for you, Dinesh. Does only the authorized person have to fill the compliance form, or is it every shareholder, manager, and director?
So, so we would independently trigger the compliance form, like I said earlier in my presentation, that all stakeholders would receive the compliance form, and they would have to independently complete the compliance questionnaire, because this is specifically for them to answer these questions. So, yeah, the clients themselves would have to complete this compliance questionnaire independently, and yeah, like I mentioned earlier, yeah, it'll get triggered to all the stakeholders. I hope that's clear.
Very clear, thank you. And also a very common question, if I'm living outside of the UAE, can I provide my proof of address outside of the UAE?
Absolutely. Yeah, we accept this as well. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be within the UAE. Your proof of address can be from outside the UAE as well.
Okay, great. For Charles, what is the mechanism you rely on to applying ongoing monitoring process on the companies we haven't made up?
Thank you, Nada. That's a great question. So ongoing monitoring, there's two main things, like Sophia touched on earlier with regards to screening. So our screening system is continuously conducting screening, at which point we review regularly on a daily basis. So that's one way of conducting ongoing monitoring. Similarly as well, again, as Sophia mentioned, we also conduct inspections on all of our businesses. So there may be a time where you receive an email from Meydan with regards to an inspection meeting. And this is just a simple meeting between us and yourselves as the client, just to confirm your business activities, the ultimate beneficial owners that are registered on your own ultimate beneficial owner register. So we have regular meetings, regular inspections conducted for all our licenses. So yeah, ongoing screening and inspections are our main methods of conducting ongoing monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. For Sophia, clients are asking, is there a delay to get registered to AML for corporate service providers?
I'm not sure about delay, but for registration, they have to register in the GoAML system as soon as possible, and also register in the notification system of TFS. And they can have the links from our website for anti-money laundering within Ministry of Economy website.
Here, thank you. Okay, for Dinesh, if the police clearance certificate is asked by the compliance, the applicant can submit from the home country or from the country they are living in.
So actually, this would be specified over an email. So we would, when we request for a police clearance from the client, we would mention from where we would request the police clearance to come from. Yeah.
Clear. For Charles, what if the politically exposed person is either an employee of the customer or contractor of the customer?
Thank you, Nada. So a politically exposed person isn't always the direct individual themselves. You can also be classed as a PEP if you are associated with a PEP or if you are related to a PEP. Now, the individual themselves would need to declare themselves whether they are a PEP or not. So it could be the case where if they are an employee, if you as the client are, as I said, associated to them, or if you are related, that could mean you too do fall under as being a politically exposed person. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Very clear, thank you. I think this is all the questions we have. I see a lot of questions that are repeated. We already answered it, or it was answered on the chat. Does anyone else have anything to add?
All right, thank you for attending the compliance webinar. Our appreciations extend to Ms. Safiya from the Ministry of Economy, Mr. Hassan Al-Hassani from the Executive Office, and Mr. Dinesh, Nada, Charles, and our director, Mr. Hamid Ahli from Maidan Free Zone. This session has been recorded and will be distributed on our social media channels. The presentation will be sent to your respective emails, and feel free to scan this QR code. We value your feedback. Thank you very much.